Hey YouTube, this is J.Michelle from LYL Locs. I'm a loctician in the Atlanta area and I specialize in healthy hair repairs. This video I wanted to talk about interlocking and kind of give you all um, just give you all information on the dangers of interlocking. Before I get started, I know people are going to have questions about my hair. These are pipe cleaner curls. This is day one. They will last for 30 days. Also, people had questions about the bonnet I had on in the last video. So here is the packaging. It's First Line Evolve, and I had a large size bonnet, which stretched out pretty quickly, but I just, tossed it in the dryer and it shrank up. But anyway, I want to get started with the topic, which is interlocking. For those of you who don't know, interlocking is when you pull the lock through itself at the root. You can use a tool or without a tool. It's also known as latching, tightening, retightening. It has a bunch of different names, but essentially you're putting a knot in the hair. Now, people do this one as a method to start, especially if you have longer hair, straight hair, soft hair, something difficult to lock up. But it's also a maintenance method. And the deal is, your hair at the root is not locked. Well, you can't quite see it, but your hair at the root isn't locked, okay? It's not corn stalks growing in. Your hair is going to grow out in its natural state, which is loose. Over time, it will become matted up and become a lock, all right? So a lot of people don't like all that loose hair at the root, which is why they choose to interlock. So instead of having loose hair, it's just a bunch of knots. Now, the good thing about it is that if you did have a difficult to lock, hair, soft, straight, this is a great way to jump into dreadlocks without having to wait, have it take so much time to get your hair to mat up. It's also good if you swim or you're very active and you want to shampoo your hair frequently without worrying about it coming apart. The issue I have with interlocking is that it can really lead to some serious damage. And I'm going to post some pictures at the end of the video. But it can really cause some serious issues, which is why I no longer offer that as a service. The thing that happens is that when you interlock, when you pull the hair through, you create a gap. And then you have to pull it through again, usually at a 90-degree angle, and it closes. And then you pull it through again and it opens and then it closes. So that's how you form the knots, okay? What can happen though is that if it is done improperly, maybe the person is rushing or they just don't know what they're doing, you get all types of problems. All right, the first problem is that you get a gap. You have a Y, okay? So each one of my fingers represents the root that's now been split in two. So it looks like a Y. You have, what's that little piece there? You have two roots in one lock. And as your hair grows out, you will have two roots in one lock. It will look like a Y. It looks really weird. Okay, you might have two locks in one root, but you don't have it flipped the other way around. It looks weird. Okay, the other thing that can happen is that you form a hole, but then close it up. So it kind of looks like this. So each one of these, does that make sense? Each one of these is the root, and then it's closed at the top. So as your hair grows out, you will literally have a hole in it. You'll be able to see through it. Now, sometimes the hole isn't open like that. Sometimes it's closed like this. And over time, I don't know, can you see by my fingers? Over time, it will begin to open. So obviously, aesthetically, it looks weird. It's eye-catching in a bad way. Okay, people are going to be looking at your locks and wondering why they look weird. But they don't know why it looks weird, but it looks off. And it's because you have all these holes and gaps and extra roots in your head. It looks weird. It looks strange, okay? But when you have the roots split like that, it can cause different stress on it, which can cause, like if it's like this, one of these little new roots may not be strong and it may break off, okay? Then you have the lock barely hanging on because only half the root is holding up the weight. So your root can break off as your hair grows down. That section of the lock can break off. So the point is you're going to lose some or not all, some if not all of that lock. Does that make sense? I know I'm saying lock a lot, but I'll post some pictures so you'll see. So you could be creating some serious structural issues that will lead to some serious damage down the line. Now, sometimes to repair it, it's just simple as catching it early and pulling it back through to close that gap. Sometimes when it's really serious, I may have to cut off one of the the roots and join it back in. So it just depends, but it's easiest if you get someone who actually knows what they're doing, who's not rushing. Okay. The other problem I have with it is it changes your mindset on how your locks should look. Okay. Locks are not neat. I mean, it's matted up hair. If you want to get technical, it's hair that's matted together. So if you never get used to seeing your roots kind of fuzzy and messy, to me, you're missing out on the whole point of locks, okay? Which is, the journey experience. I don't fall all into that, but, your hair is not going to grow out locked. And if you have this mindset that it has to be absolutely neat all the time, it's going to cause problems. It's going to cause you to do different things to your hair to maintain that look. But that's detrimental to the health of your hair. Okay. With interlocking, you should be getting it done every 6 to 8 weeks. What happens is you want it super neat. So 6 to 8 weeks becomes once a month. All right. And you have to have so much loose hair to be able to pull it through. So if you're doing it constantly, all right, it's going to end up being done too tight and you're going to end up getting traction alopecia. Now that's where there's so much stress and tension at the root that the hair breaks off and your hair literally stops growing. That's why you see people whose parts have gotten, super, super wide. Like so wide you can almost stick a lock in it. The parts are so wide. That's balding. That's a bald spot. Okay? And if you, I hate to say this, but if you really look at people who've been interlocking for a long time, you'll find that a lot of them have parts that are ridiculously wide. And it's not because they're thinning, it's a genetic issue. It's because they've caused themselves to go bald. And for those of you who are interlocking, who hopefully you're not offended by this, I'm just giving you the information. If you have someone who is doing it right, then you don't have to worry. If you're doing it yourself, you should only be doing the part you can see, which is the front. Okay, so don't do the rest. Do what you can see in the front. And if it's done correctly, you won't have any issues. But I do want to let you know the process of how these issues happen. All right. So first you start off, you love your hair. You love it interlocked. You're so nice and neat. And then one day it just gets a little fuzzy. And you say, let me interlock a little bit more often, or let me do it a little tighter because I'm trying to get that look I first had of it being super neat. What you don't know is that fuzziness you experience is the first sign of breakage. That means you have hair that has broken off and it's just hanging out there, which is why it's fuzzy, because when your hair is super short, it won't lay down. It doesn't matter what kind of locking gel you use. It just sticks up. Okay? So that is the first step in breakage. Now, if you had a loctician who understood, repairs and everything like that, they should have caught it early. All right, but if you're doing it yourself, if you're going to someone inexperienced, they don't know. All right. So then you start interlocking it more. You start doing it tighter. Then all of a sudden it just gets super neat. You're like, damn, this is perfect. This is what I've been searching for. What you don't realize is that you have begun to bald. Because it's neat because those little short hairs are no longer there. They have stopped growing. Okay. Either literally the hair is completely dead and it's no longer growing, or you have scar tissue on top, which is preventing the hair from getting through. Either way, the hair is gone. That is a bad spot, because at that point, you're going to have to go to a dermatologist. There's nothing that me as a stylist can do. All right. And I see so many clients who come in and they're like, well, my parts have gotten wide. I've lost my edges. I know I've been interlocking. Is there anything you can do? If you don't have any hair there, there is nothing I can do. And that's, very frustrating, because the only thing I could do is, say, hey, let's do a style to hide it. Or, let's do some kind of bridge or lock toupee to try to hide these spots. And the whole point is you don't want to get in this position where you have to worry about that. So I have some pictures that are going to be coming. They're going to be posted. So just take a look at them and you'll see what I've been talking about. So pay attention for, the Ys, the gaps. I see this all the time. And if you, after seeing this video, if you still want to do interlocking, that is completely fine. You just have to find someone who is qualified, someone who will not rush. And you have to make sure that you're taking a look at your hair. So you need to feel it. If you feel these really weird knots and bumps, because you'll feel it. You'll feel that it just feels different. Okay, get a mirror, a hand mirror, and go look at it. Okay, if you have these gaps and holes, if you catch it early, it can be fixed. All right, so some of the pictures I'm going to show you now are, they're extreme. They're the worst of the worst that I usually see. So hopefully this will be informative to people. If you have not started interlocking, I would suggest that you don't. I would suggest that you retwist your hair regularly, meaning every 2 to 3 weeks, and you will decrease how much unlocked hair you have at the root. A lot of clients I've met who have been just obsessed with having their hair neat, once they started getting it retwisted regularly, they decreased all of that unlocked hair at the root, and it stayed neater longer. Okay. If you have any questions on this, find me on Instagram, because I'm quicker to respond there than I am on here. I just find that responding on YouTube is difficult for whatever reason. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, find me on Instagram and send me your questions there, and I will answer them. Hopefully I didn't get you all too upset. I'm just trying to give you the information you need, and then you can decide what you want to do. All right. Till next video. I'll see you then. Bye. This is what can happen if you don't interlock correctly. Someone tried to join these roots together, but they didn't do it right. They left a hole, and now there's two roots and two locks creating an X shape.